plots his comeback. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Down, but far from out. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, fresh from his stop at the Calgary Stampede, is doing a midi media blitz. It's been a difficult few months for the veteran MP and one-time frontrunner to become the next Prime Minister of Canada. His Conservative Party lost a double-digit lead in the polls, fell to the Liberals in the last election, and Poilievre himself lost in his own riding. But despite those setbacks, it doesn't sound like Pierre Poilievre plans to go anywhere. In an interview with Omni Television, Poilievre admitted he wasn't happy with the result in his former riding of Carleton, where he was elected 7 times.
I was saddened because I believe I could be doing so much good right now if we had won the election, and we had such a great platform. And I was looking forward to doing those things, but I see it as not a defeat, but a delay.
In the 2021 pandemic election, Poilievre won that riding with 50% of the vote. But this time around, he was out-hustled on his own turf by an upstart Liberal candidate, Bruce Fanjoy, who bested Poilievre by about 4,000 votes. He lays part of the blame for his defeat on the changing demographics of the riding. It's an Ottawa area riding that used to be mostly rural and very conservative. Now it's more suburban, and a lot of the new voters living there work for the federal government. Poilievre thinks that hurt him.
The reality is that it's largely a government worker riding now, a lot of public service workers, and I was very honest. I said we have to cut the size of the bureaucracy. We can't simply grow the government forever, because people are paying the price for that. And obviously that wasn't a very popular message in that particular community. But we have to tell the truth that our people cannot afford to pay higher taxes for increasingly expensive government. And that's the truth that I told, and it's the reason why the outcome was what it was in that riding. But I'm still going to keep telling the truth because Canadians deserve the truth.
Pierre Poilievre hopes he won't be out of the House of Commons for very long. He is spending most of his time this summer in Alberta, where he is seen as the clear frontrunner in an upcoming by-election in the riding of Battle River Crowfoot. The Conservative candidate, Damien Couric, won that riding in this year's election with 82% of the vote. He stepped aside so Poilievre could run and get back into the game. And if he does win, he has his sights on the man who is Prime Minister, Mark Carney, as evidenced by a Poilievre stump speech at the Calgary Stampede this past weekend.
Now the Liberals, they have a new salesman. They changed Trudeau for Carney. And he has it's a new look, new talking points, some of which he's plagiarized from yours truly. And he's now claiming to support things that he's long opposed. Beyond that, he's trying to flip-flop on the issues that we know he really believes in. But at his core, he believes in the same top-down government-knows-best approach. Carney's first ever spending bill boosted the cost of government by 8% in just 1 year. That's twice the combined rate of inflation and population growth. And I note that is on the baseline of the biggest, fattest, most morbidly obese government we've ever had. He's kept Trudeau's failed policies, the same red tape, the same production caps, the no new pipelines law, the ban on oil tankers, on gas-powered cars, and on much more.
So can Poilievre be the comeback kid, or is Pierre Poilievre yesterday's man? Cam Holmstrom, a longtime NDP strategist and principal at Nipaway Strategies, doesn't see any breakthrough coming for Pierre Poilievre.
He hasn't changed. He's been the same guy ever since he got elected. He's doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled down on it. And eventually, at some point, if you don't win the whole hand, you're going to crap out. And that's what's happened here. I think the kicker is, and this is actually a similar problem the NDP has right now to the Conservatives. You want to try to make Mark Carney the boogeyman? You want to say he's just like Justin Trudeau? Well, everything that has happened so far would definitely scream the opposite. And people aren't scared of Mark Carney. They aren't worried about Mark Carney. If anything, they are comforted by Mark Carney. So all of a sudden, it not only this disproves what you've been trying to say all this time. He hasn't figured out a way to pivot or a will to pivot away from that yet. At the end of the day, he's not trying to react to the moment. He's waiting for the moment to come back to him. And if you do that, well, guess what? You may have missed the wave. You could find yourself sitting on the beach looking at the scenery around you.
But Gary Keller doesn't see it that way. Keller is vice president of Strategy Corps and a longtime conservative strategist. He actually ran for the Conservatives in this year's election. He says, don't write off Poilievre just yet, but hard questions will need to be asked about what went wrong.
Losing the seat was not ideal, and not being in the House of Commons is not ideal. But again, it was, 4 weeks in May, right after the election. There's a lot of time to reflect over the summer. Yes, the party does have to do a postmortem. There are questions that have to be asked about the campaign and how it was conducted, and obviously the refusal to pivot until late in the campaign is a big question. But to Ashton's point, look, we know he's going to face a leadership review. It's in the party constitution. That is just a fact of life. And I suspect that he will win that leadership review. The question will be by what size. So
the latest polls offer a mixed picture of voting intentions right now. Some polls suggest the Liberals enjoy a huge lead over the Conservatives and are enjoying a nice summer honeymoon. Nanos Research, for example, says it's a 14-point lead for the Liberals, with the Conservatives back down to the low 30s. The latest poll from Abacus Data says it's a close two-horse race, with the Liberals enjoying 41% support and the Conservatives just 1 point back. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With my friend on the right side of things, Michael Taube is back with us, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. How are you?
How are you doing today, Rob?
I gotcha. Great to connect with you again.
You bet.
Look, I want to talk a little bit about UK politics. We talk about conservative politics, yes, in Canada, but also in countries all over the world. Michael is a great student of conservative movements internationally, and he writes for British publications as well. I mean, in the UK, the politics there, it's in full swing. Their parliament is sitting, and even yesterday they had the Prime Minister's question time. In fact, we're going to play some of this. This is Nigel Farage. He is the leader of Reform UK, asking a question to the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Roll the tape.
We will not accept undocumented males across the English Channel, and that you are not dictated to by an increasingly arrogant anti-Brexit French leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are fixing the mess that we inherited. We are working with other countries to ensure that we take the measures necessary to stop people crossing the Channel. They are serious answers to serious problems. His proposal for 10 years, wagging the Tory dog, has been to break everything and claim that's how you fix things, to stick two fingers up at your neighbours and then expect them to work with us. And he votes against the Borders Bill, which gives more powers to our law enforcement to deal with security at our borders. And, Mr. Speaker, the reason for that is he has no interest in fixing the problem because he wants to milk it and exploit it. That's the truth about him and his party.
So again, Nigel Farage, Reform UK, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, who just a year ago won a massive landslide election win that ended 18 years of Tory rule. But there is a new poll out, and it shows that the shine has truly worn off the Labour Party. But that doesn't mean the Brits are in any rush to bring back the Tories. And in fact, this poll says, by YouGov, if an election was held today in the UK, Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, would win the most seats in a hung parliament, which I find incredible. What do you think happened to Labour?
You know, to be fair, Rob, this has been going on. It's not just one poll. This has been going on now for several months. If you look at YouGov and various other polls in the area, they're actually showing that Reform UK has not only surged, but has moved actually farther ahead. This most recent poll seems to show that at least in the case of the way conservative voters and others in Britain are looking at it right now, that they would look towards Reform UK, who have never held government before. And this is actually the first time they've actually elected members to the House of Commons in the UK, and that just happened last year. It's an extraordinary surge, but what has basically happened is, for a lot of Britons who actually voted for Keir Starmer in 2024, for the belief that they felt it was going to be different than, as you said, the 18 years of Tory rule, and just, their last Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, just using him as a basic example, they felt that he was sort of the last charge of it. He accomplished nothing. He was not able to get anything done, and it just became a stagnant government. What's actually happened, which is interesting, is that Starmer has been sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, where a lot of people on the political left naturally support him because it is the Labour Party, and they're expecting him to do a lot of, spending or heavy spending on, public utilities, on government services, on protecting people who are on welfare or having issues. At the same time, he has to also deal with a Britain that looks at issues very, very differently. Obviously the effects of Brexit still resonate within that country for this time. There are people, obviously, who voted for him who wanted him to take a different position when it maybe came to trade, international relations, and various other things. And what's interesting is if you actually read a lot of the British dailies, and I know you do, Rob, what is really kind of neat is that, well, at least to me as a conservative looking from the outside, is that all these people who support Labour traditionally are furious at Starmer because they perceive that he's taking somewhat conservative positions. Like, let's just take the migrant issue that you played the clip for, the one in, one out migrant deal. For all that Starmer and the Labour government is suggesting that they're trying to deal with the Tory mess, many Labour supporters look at the one in, one out deal as actually worse than anything the Tories ever proposed in 18 years of government straight. For that reason, you're actually watching a lot of Britons get frustrated with a government that's roughly about a year old, that was supported by a lot of Britons from different walks of life, and they're starting to realize that this super majority that they gave Starmer, because for all the chatter and all the talk and all the polls, Rob, nothing is going to happen until at least 2028, 2029. That's when the next election is actually scheduled for. It's
Good
just
point.
showing that a lot of people really feel that they have wasted their vote with Starmer early on. They're furious. And now they're looking at Nigel Farage as a real possibility to become the Prime Minister of Britain, which would be astonishing.
I mean, with Nigel Farage in the UK, I've been following that guy forever, since he was kind of this outspoken MP in the European Parliament. He was certainly a leader in the Brexit movement. I mean, that's
right.
I mean, this poll suggests he could be the Prime Minister of the UK someday. Could you see that happening?
I mean, I'm the same way as you. I didn't see it years ago, not because he necessarily didn't have the ability or the talents, but he was taking a lot of positions that really sort of cut the teeth of a lot of people and really kind of frustrated them one way or the other. And you saw it a lot during the Brexit debate, that where he was one of the recognized leaders of it, but he was taking pretty hard stances on immigration and whatnot. And it just seemed like it was inevitable that he could become an MP. I never thought that was ever out of the ordinary after he left the European Parliament, and he was there for many years. But I didn't see him going much further than this. I think it's just sort of the times are changing, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about it in different contexts before we're done. It just shows that someone like Nigel Farage, who would never have been considered at one point to be a viable leader of a country, is now in a position where, if an election were held, even though we're years away from it, he would have a very strong chance of it. Not dissimilar to people like Pierre Poilievre, for example.
Well, let's put a Canadian spin on this. I mean, a year ago, massive landslide for Labour. And, Starmer was all smiles a year ago. Again, the election is not today, and it's not for years. But if it was today, Labour would go down to defeat, a crushing defeat. Now, Here we have Mark Carney and the Liberals enjoying a bit of a honeymoon. Makes me wonder, though, Mike, what do things look like a year from now? What do you think?
I think that's a fair juxtaposition. In a year from now, things could be very different. Also considering the fact that Carney has what would be a large minority, not a majority. He's not in the same position as Starmer, where Starmer can trip and fumble many, many times over and he'll still be in power. Carney can't do that quite as much. And while some pundits are coming out and saying that Carney is safe for the next 2 to 3 years, I think they're out of their minds. He's not at all. In fact, I've written a column about it, and whether people agree or disagree with it, having a larger minority is not necessarily a safer position because you can be hammered by by-elections, you could be hammered by policies, you could be hammered by frustration within the caucus. Right now, Carney's in a political honeymoon, the same way Starmer was for a period of time, but things can change very easily and very, very readily. Do I think Carney will go down a year? Not necessarily, but in less than 2, it's certainly possible. That's the history of minority governments in this country. And Carney, unlike his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, doesn't have a supply and confidence agreement with the NDP in place. In fact, the NDP isn't even represented in the House of Commons right now. They're only at 7 seats. So his position is more precarious in certain ways. He's safe right now. He's in his political honeymoon period, that being Mark Carney, but things could be very different in a year's time or slightly more.
Okay. Look, great to hear from you again.
Pleasure
Be
as
off
always,
for
my friend.
a few weeks, and we'll get caught up at the end of the month, I hope, Michael. Thank you so much again.
Sounds good as always, my friend. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. That's Michael Taube. He's a syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Still ahead, it is our Newsday panel coming up. We have a great pair of political analysts coming up, one conservative, one liberal, and top of mind for us, the Carney Liberal government planning budget cuts. I mean, big budget cuts in the neighborhood of $25 billion, not insignificant. And in the parliamentary budget officer, Yves Giroux, warning about things like layoffs across the public sector. Programs could be hit. Unions won't be happy. Just what is ahead? Could there be trouble ahead for the Carney Liberal government? Are we entering an age of liberal-style austerity? That and much more just ahead in our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's time for our Newsday panel. All Island edition today. Jordan Paquet back with us, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group. How are you?
Great, Rob. How you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Nick McRoberts as well is back from Hill and Knowlton. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing good, Rob. How are you?
That's good. That's good. Summer's going well, I hope, for both of you.
Very much.
Very good.
Did you get home?
Getting back from Calgary.
Oh, you're back from Calgary, of course.
Canada.
Okay.
Heading east in a couple weeks.
Okay. Yes, I'm headed that way on Sunday myself, but very much looking forward to it. Okay. I want to get into this budget stuff from the Carney Liberals. The Carney Liberals are planning budget cuts in the neighborhood of $25 billion. The parliamentary budget officer is already warning there's going to be layoffs across the public sector. Obviously, the unions are not going to be happy. The public service unions will not be happy. The NDP is not going to be happy. Some liberals might not be happy. Some Canadians might not be happy. How can the Prime Minister, how can Mark Carney convince Canadians, get them to buy in to cost-cutting measures? Nick, what would you say?
Well, I would say, if I was going to convince Canadians, that $25 billion number is not immediate. That happens. Those cuts happen over a number of years, and those cuts are more so actually moving money around to different places. So while there may be budgetary restraints at a department like Environment and Climate Change Canada, we're also going to see an influx of cash into national defense or into procurement. Because what we need to do is get the projects off the ground that we talked about during the campaigns and that Canadians voted for. Housing programs and defense programs, those cost money, and they have to come from somewhere. I'll note partisanly that conservatives railed on Trudeau for running all of these deficits. Unfortunately, part of getting rid of a deficit is cutting spending. and that's what's going to have to happen from here. You have to break some eggs to make some omelets.
Okay, breaking eggs to make omelets. How do you see it? How do you see the Prime Minister convincing the Canadians that these cost-cutting measures are needed, Jordan?
Well, I mean, to continue on with the partisan side of it, part of his advantage is that he's a Liberal Prime Minister. I mean, back in the day when Stephen Harper started doing these cuts, it was the end of the world as far as civil service was concerned. But frankly, these are measures that are needed. We do need to find cost savings inside of government. So it will be up to the Prime Minister. This is the job that he signed up for, to get out and convince Canadians what areas have to have the savings. Ironically, it's funny because, I mean, a lot of the jobs potentially that are affected and people that are worried are in the greater Ottawa area inside the bubble, and these ridings all voted Liberal. So I know this was a big point of debate during the election. Civil servants ran towards the Liberals because they were worried about that a Conservative government would come in and do a bunch of cuts, whereas now people are getting what they voted for, and so we're going to see, I suppose, what the result of all this is. But there absolutely has to be cost cutting. I mean, spending has been out of control over the last 10 years, and it absolutely has to proceed.
I mean, if you're the Prime Minister, you're leading, and I'm using air quotes here, a new government. Okay, and you're enjoying a bit of a honeymoon. Don't you want to do it now? Like get this out of the way now. Start the cost cutting now, early, instead of waiting. You know, while you still enjoy, you know, kind of, I guess, some support in the public. Nick, what would you say to that? Just the timing of it. Like, let's get on this right now.
I would say yes, you have to get on it early while, you know, Pierre's not in the house and while, you know, the honeymoon period, as you say, is there. But $25 billion can't just disappear overnight. The scale and scope of what they're talking about doing is going to take some time. And I think that's why the moves that we've seen to date with Bill C-5 and the interprovincial regulations and immigration levels and a middle-class tax cut, you get those things done now to set the groundwork in the future, because doing something like building out a brand new agency to get financing put in place for new homes takes time. So yeah, to your point, Rob, I think you get these things done early while you have the polling numbers to support it. But some of these things, just by their nature, can't be done quickly. And I think that's what Carney has to sell to Canadians.
Yeah. You know, because I think back to the Harper years and you know, Mr. Flaherty, I think, had some regrets that they didn't go further earlier. Jordan, that was my sense of things. How do you see it?
No, absolutely. But I think, you know, early on in the Harper mandate, it would have been a lot more difficult, given they only had a minority government at that time. When they really started the draft deficit reduction action plan, that was into the majority days. Early on, yeah, there was a lot of you know, honeymoon period goodwill in that particular sense. But but they had to kind of make those tough decisions. And it proved super unpopular in Ottawa, of course, in the Ottawa area that employs tons of civil servants. That some of them still complain about it today. So we'll see how far Carney is willing to go. Is he actually willing to take the action that's needed on this? And I think he'll find a bit of a playing partner in the Conservatives, in that they probably won't stand in the way in a lot of this.
Okay. Look, when we come back, we'll talk about Pierre Poilievre. He's been doing I call it kind of a mini media junket, and talking about his plans for the summer and his return to the House of Commons, a little bit about what went wrong during the election campaign. When we come back, it's our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With Jordan Paquet from Blue Sky Strategy Group and Nick McRoberts with Hill and Knowlton, it's our Newsday panel. So let me outline this line of thinking for you. In conservative circles, it goes something like this. Everything will start to improve for the Conservative Party after Pierre Poilievre wins a by-election in Alberta returns to the House of Commons and gets to attack whatever is in the fall budget. And whatever funk the Conservatives are in now is just a temporary thing. Jordan, what do you think of that narrative?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, the strategy this summer, I believe, is to sort of not pounce on every single story that's out there, not put Pierre Poilievre out in national media all the time. He's got a by-election to run in. He's been spending time around the Stampede, spoke very well at this very massive sold-out barbecue last Saturday night. And so caucus is united. I mean, the support is there. The party is quite united in that. Of course, there's always going to be some grumbling voices out there, but by and large, they have all the pieces to make this work. Now, once Pierre gets back to Ottawa, gets a seat back in the House, that does change the game a bit. Do I expect poll numbers to suddenly shift right away in September? Not necessarily. It's going to take a bit of time. Carney has set the bar very high for himself. And if he doesn't deliver on some of these key promises, then Conservatives will be very much picking away at all of these gaps.
Okay. What do you think of this narrative? Poilievre wins a by-election. He's back in the House. There's the budget to pick on. And it's just a temporary lull in support for the Conservatives. Nick, what do you think?
I don't think it's so cut and dry. You know, what happened in the election is that the Conservatives lost. Pierre lost his seat. And now I think the party would do well to look at what does Pierre have to do, not just to win this seat, but to reassure the base that he's the one to do it. Like, what happens if he wins his seat but gets less of a share of the vote than Damien Carrick got? What happens if he comes back into the House and after that period of time that Jordan talks about, the poll numbers don't increase? And then what happens if he gets into the House and the fall budget has all of these things in it that the Conservatives want to see, deficit reduction measures and funding for traditional energy projects and for these large national initiatives that the Conservatives seem to also want? Like, how does that all line up to Conservatives not just getting out of a funk, but going into their leadership review in January and saying, yeah, Pierre's our guy, and that's the direction of the party. And if Pierre decides that he wants to pivot the direction of the party, we saw this during the campaign, how does that work to appease more of the right-wing Conservatives? How much of Alberta politics does he lean into while being a national leader? How does that work out east? I think this funk that gets described is a much more institutionalized issue than just, there's some sadness in the party right now.
Okay. Any response to that, Jordan?
Yeah, sure. Look, events matter. As we've seen over the past year, events and things like that are super important. So Justin Trudeau was in a terrible position last summer. He's no longer the prime minister right now. If Mark Carney's coming into this cycle with the budget, if Canadians don't start to see the prices of homes come down, don't see the prices of groceries coming down, Conservatives can still continue to lean in on those affordability issues, no matter how much of their platform that the Liberals want to pick through and take. Frankly, I'm happy if they want to take most of their ideas and then just go for it. But it's still those affordability measures that are going to be key. If Canadians don't see a change in that, then it gives a big opportunity for the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre.
Okay. Now, I mentioned Pierre Poilievre has been doing a series of media interviews in the last few days. He's been speaking with Vancouver Media, Calgary Herald, and our friends at Omni Television, where he was asked, what happened in Carleton? What happened in your riding? And he more or less said it's become a more suburban riding now, and a lot of people in that riding work for the government. Here's Pierre Poilievre.
The reality is that it's largely a government worker riding now, a lot of public service workers, and I was very honest. I said we have to cut the size of the bureaucracy. We can't simply grow the government forever because people are paying the price for that. And obviously that wasn't a very popular message in that particular community. But we have to tell the truth that our people cannot afford to pay higher taxes for increasingly expensive government. And that's the truth that I told, and it's the reason why the outcome was what it was in that riding. But I'm still going to keep telling the truth because Canadians deserve the truth.
What do you think about that, Nick? I lost because of government workers in the riding. What do you think?
I think I think that the Liberals also, without being as overt maybe as the Conservatives were, signaled that there would be some cuts to come in the bureaucracy when they talked about operational spending versus investment and all of these things. Like it's veiled, I admit, but it points to cuts to the bureaucracy. So if both parties were offering relatively the same thing, and I think Jordan and I have agreed before that the platforms are actually quite similar. It comes down to likability, and Pierre Poilievre's brand has gone stale, and I think that's what voters in Carleton showed.
All right, Jordan.
No, this is what I'm saying. This is what I say in the first segment. It's so ironic, and it is true what Poilievre said. Most of the Ottawa ridings getting out there into that far part of Carleton has become that. Mark Carney did not talk about $25 billion worth of cuts to the civil service inside of that. The Liberals campaigned against the Conservatives, saying that it was going to be the Conservatives that were going to do these massive cuts and job losses. So, again, at the end of the day, people are going to get what they vote for, and the Liberals, I think, were just better to Nick's point about hiding perhaps what they were going to do when they actually got to government, which is what's happening now.
All right. When we come back, look, it is the season of barbecues, shaking hands and kissing babies. It's the season of politicians meeting their constituents. Who's great at it? Who's a great retail politician? I will ask our political panelists when we come back on News Radio.
In the 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Tanya Blakeney. Traffic lights still being worked on in the southeast at Fairmount Drive and Farrell Road. You'll find crews doing the work and a four-way stop required. Routes remain relatively nice and drying throughout the city. Some light rain falling in some areas, but the travel speed on most routes unaffected by that, including Deerfoot Trail moving north and south close to the 100K mark between Stoney and Stoney. If there is something in your way, a stall, collision, or distraction, you can pass it on 403-291-0066. Now the forecast from Environment Canada with some wet weather today. The risk of thunderstorm lingers this afternoon, a high just 16 degrees. It's the coolest of the foreseeable future with low 10 degrees overnight. Things warm up tomorrow. Fog that could develop by morning should burn off quickly with the sun shining and a high 25 degrees. Saturday and Championship Sunday, day 10 at the Stampede, should be sunny as well. Temperature through the weekend above 26 degrees.
There are over 613,000 Canadian small businesses on TikTok. Businesses that added $1.4 billion to Canada's GDP in 2024. Like Edison Motors in Golden, BC, whose electric hybrid vehicles are driving innovation in Canada's trucking industry. Or XXL Scrunchie in Belleville, Ontario, who turned extra-large scrunchies into extra-large economic impact. Visit TikTokCanada.ca to learn more about how TikTok is helping small businesses in Canada make a big impact.
Gord Gillies here with Debbie Franchuk, RN and co-owner of Home Instead. Deb, when we talk about caring for our parents when they get older, cost is always a factor. What can you tell us about the comparative cost of home care versus an institution?
Well, Gord, our lower needs clients spend about $1,700 per month to stay in their home with great care. Those with higher needs, they might spend around $3,000 per month. That's significantly less than moving to, say, a studio apartment costing about $4,000 to $5,000 per month, and that's without care.
When you look at the numbers, you can see why more people are choosing Home Instead.
Well, it really makes sense, Gord. It's a no-brainer.
How much would an average family pay for Home Instead?
Well, each care plan is personalized to your loved one's needs, but our average client spends about $2,300 per month for great care to stay where they want to be, in their own home.
Providing care they deserve in the home they love. Visit homeinsteadcalgary.com.
Calgary businesses, are you protected from cyber threats? Calypso IT provides comprehensive managed security services that your business needs. With managed firewalls, dark web monitoring, and proactive intrusion detection, Calypso protects your business from advanced threats, attacks, and breaches. And their Calgary-based Security Operations Center offers local expertise and support, ensuring you're always protected with the latest technologies. Calypso, CALITSO.com.
Representation in media is important.
There's a lot of people with disabilities that don't feel seen.
I'm a music producer. Having a disability is not really shown in the industry.
I make media representing women in wheelchairs.
AMI is a broadcaster that strives to change the way people think about disability.
I'm a very loud and proud deaf woman, and I want to be able to make a difference.
Watch inclusive and accessible content on AMI TV or stream now at AMIplus.ca.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Here with our Newsday panelists, Jordan Paquet, Nick McRoberts. You've both worked for politicians at the highest levels, okay? You've seen the masters of the craft. This is the time of year politicians are out. They're going to barbecues. They're going to fireworks. They're attending every summer event they can in their community. They're shaking a lot of hands. They're meeting a lot of people, kissing a lot of babies. In your experience, who is or was a great retail politician? Like in that environment, who excels or excelled in that environment? Nick?
I'll give Jordan a nice crisp $20 bill if he can guess who I'm going to say. But my own former boss, Lawrence McCauley. You know, Lawrence was elected as an MP since 1988 and retired just before the last election. Served in cabinet positions for Jean Chrétien, for Justin Trudeau. Served as an opposition critic. Saw some really dark days as an opposition critic when the Liberal Party went down to very few seats, but was still able to move, several strong files forward. And I think that's the mark of a retail politician is he's able to do that in Ottawa and then come back to the riding in Cardigan and Prince Edward Island and go to those strawberry socials and host them at his farm and walk up to people and know them by their name. And, Lawrence knew my extended family the day I walked into his office for the first time, right? He knows, your great aunt. He knows your grandmother.
Yeah.
And I think
it's amazing.
that's the benefit of a retail politician is, you know the folks that you're talking to, the people in your riding, and then you're able to go and deliver for them.
Let's hear from Jordan. Let's hear from Jordan.
Sure.
Jordan?
Yeah. No. Look, I agree. Lawrence was a great retail politician. Look, I just saw a lot of these guys in action on the Stampede circuit last weekend, and I got to say, Danielle Smith, seeing people in a room is quite engaging. She really can draw on your attention. Commands the attention of the room. I mean, you've seen her work a pancake grill. I think you've seen some of those videos where she's kind of flipping them over quickly, and versus how perhaps the current prime minister and the former one used to do that. But look, the current one that and look, going back to I'll give Justin Trudeau credit in some aspects of it. Not my favorite person as a prime minister policy wise for sure. But I think he was able to go out and make people feel like they were important. He certainly got sort of the flashy parts of the job and the visual parts, at least early days in. As long as he kept the dancing to a minimum, he was usually pretty good at the retail side of things.
Yeah. I would pick two. I'll get the last word, I guess. I would say John Baird. I've seen John Baird in action. Just amazing.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
This might make me persona non grata among some of my conservative friends, but on Cape Breton Island, David Dingwall, like to I'm telling you, man, to Nick's point, David Dingwall could show up at an event, plaque dedication or something, and maybe he hasn't seen you in 20 years. Yeah. He knows your name. He knows your father's name. He knows your cousin's name. He knows your uncle. It was amazing. Just incredible. That there was a reason why he was. Yeah, I mean, the reason he was so successful for so long in the political realm, though, you can't deny it.
No,
you've got something. Yeah. Okay. Look, great to hear from you. Enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll speak soon, my friends. Bye-bye.
Enjoy the trip.
Yeah, great stuff today. Jordan Paquet from Blue Sky Strategy Group, Nick McRoberts from Hill and Knowlton. Talkback is coming up next on News Radio.
Talkback.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're going to talk politics. We're going to talk federal politics today. We haven't talked about federal politics in quite some time during Talkback. It's been many, many weeks, in fact. So we want to dip our toes back into this pool again and just find out what you think about everything that's been going on. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. We have lots of questions. We're pretty wide open today, though, on where the conversation goes, as long as we stick to the main theme, which is federal politics. But here's one big question that we have for you today. It's a big question. Do you think the Conservatives will ever win an election and ever form a government as long as Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party? What do you think? Could you ever see that happening? Could you ever see Pierre Poilievre leading the Conservative Party to victory over the Liberals and actually winning it all? Or is something like that never going to happen as long as Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party? What say you? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. In case you haven't noticed, Pierre Poilievre's been on a bit of a media tour of late. Of course, he would be at the Calgary Stampede. That is mandatory for any Conservative leader. It's pretty darn near mandatory for any party leader and any prime minister. You have to go to the Calgary Stampede. It's the political networking event of the year, especially for Conservatives. And it's all the more important for Poilievre to be there this year because in a little more than a month from now, he's going to be facing the voters in a by-election in an Alberta riding, Battle River Crowfoot, widely seen as one of the safest, if not the safest, Conservative ridings in the country. But in addition to doing the stampeding, he's been doing other media interviews. He did one with Rogers, did one with the Calgary Herald, did one with a Vancouver media outlet. He may be gone, but he certainly doesn't want to be forgotten. But can Pierre Poilievre make a comeback? And I mean a comeback that carries him all the way to the Prime Minister's office, leading a Conservative government? Or is that just not in the cards and never going to happen? What would you say? Give that some thought and give us a call. 1-833-668-2577. We have lines available right now. Here's another question for you. What do you think about the job Mark Carney's doing? Think about some of the things he's done. Okay, he's ended the consumer carbon tax. Says he's open to an oil pipeline. He said that within the last week or so. He's open to it. He says his government is going to make massive investments into the Canadian Armed Forces. He's told his cabinet ministers, go and find me savings in the government. He's going to do downsizing. He's going to be laying off government workers. He could be cutting government programs. I mean, these are all things that conservative-leaning voters should like. And yet he's the Liberal prime minister who says he's going to do all of these things. Now, he's also the prime minister who said Donald Trump was the biggest crisis of our lives, and there's still no deal with Donald Trump on tariffs, and some say he's caved to Trump on things like the digital services tax. The Liberals defended that for years. But when Trump started belly aching about it, it suddenly disappeared. Carney's being called a bootlicker. He's being called a bootlicker, Trump's bootlicker. Lloyd Axworthy tossing that around, calling Carney Trump's bootlicker. And Axworthy isn't some low-level junior staffer nobody in political circles. We're talking about a former Liberal cabinet minister, former foreign affairs minister. And he thinks Carney's spending way too much time licking Donald Trump's boots. But look, this guy won the Liberal leadership in March. He called an election, led the Liberals to one of the greatest come-from-behind wins in Canadian political history, falling just shy of majority government. He's calling the shots. What do you think of the job that he's doing? What do you think of the job that he's doing? And then there's the NDP. Oh, pity the NDP. I've taken calls from a lot of people over the last year or so, supporters of the NDP, voted for the NDP in the past. These are pretty tough times for the NDP. Crushed in the election. Leader lost his own seat. Party went to having just 7 MPs, not even enough for official party status. Some people in political circles are writing off the NDP. They're saying it's over for that party. There'll be provincial wings of the NDP, and they might do well, even in places like Alberta. But people are basically holding the wake for the federal NDP, and there's this belief that we're headed more for a 2-party system. Conservatives, Liberals, and the NDP will not be of any consequence anymore in the national political scene. What do you think about that? If you voted for the NDP in the past, is the NDP at the federal level just going to wither and die, or can the NDP make a comeback with the right leader? So I know a lot to chew on. Poilievre, can he make a comeback? Poilievre, can he ever be prime minister? Carney running the show has made some big announcements. Still no breakthrough with Trump. What do you think of the job he's doing? And should we just write off the NDP, publish the obituary? Or do you think the NDP, with the right leader, could rise from the ashes? Have your say. Let's kick it around for a while. Love to hear from you today. The call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we'll make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. It's Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Federal politics from all angles today. Could Pierre Poilievre make a comeback, lead the Conservatives to victory in an election? Or is that just never going to happen? Mark Carney, what do you think of the job he's doing? And the NDP, could that party make a comeback? Share your thoughts on any and all of these topics. 1-833-668-2577. To Angela, up first today on Talkback, calling from Calgary. Hi, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Angela. How are you? You're a first-time caller, is that right?
That's right. I'm a first-time caller.
What took you so long? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm on summer break.
You're on summer break. Well, yeah. I'm on summer break soon, too, so I can appreciate that. What's your opinion today?
Personally, I don't think that Pierre Poilievre is representing Canadians, and this is why the Liberals won so much, and they got their comeback, because if you looked at his platform during the election, he was concerning himself with things happening overseas. He wasn't addressing Canadians and putting Canadians first. All he kept talking about Israel. And you know what? That doesn't concern us right now. Here in Canada, you should be dealing with the people's problems. So I think this is one reason why Carney had such a big comeback. We are not from Israel. We don't represent what they believe, and why should we? And that was all over his platform. And for Carney, he's not doing too bad of a job. Will he do the perfect job? No. Can he control Trump? No. I mean, every day Trump is doing something different. So how do you penalize him according to what Trump is doing? And I think he's trying to do the best damage control he can. And I think he's listening to Canadians. So, yeah, he is changing things that maybe the Liberals used to really want to have. But if he wants to stay in power, right, we elected him. He's got to do what we say. And for the NDP, well, you know what? If you're always jumping left and right, obviously, this is why you lost so much of the boundaries.
I don't know if the NDP jumps very right very often. That's not the NDP I know. But just on Poilievre, you know, you're saying, well, he talked a lot about Israel. Certainly a staunch supporter of Israel, no question about that. He's not happy with the way these protests are happening, you know, all the time in many Canadian cities, the pro-Palestinian protests. But I think you're making too much that that was all his campaign was about. I think that was almost a side note in his campaign. He kept talking about, axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime. These were the things to me that he was focusing on during the election campaign. He said it, and I followed that every day.
Behind him and pulled the rug under him and did the same thing. So, he didn't come up with something new, right? So it's kind of like you already kind of knew what you were getting, whereas he was promising stuff, but then they went and did it. You know what I mean? So like he was like not fast enough to keep going more forward.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because the phone lines are jammed. Do you think he'll ever be prime minister? Do you think he'll ever be prime minister? Pierre Poilievre. You're going to say no. Okay. Thank you for your call, Angela. Thank you. Joanna, also a first-time caller today. Joanna. Hi, Joanna.
Hi.
Yeah, good to
How
hear
are
from you. Your thoughts, please. Good. Thanks. Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking that I was very impressed by Pierre originally when he was challenging things that Canadians needed, housing, more doctors, all of those things. But then Trump was elected, and I think two things. I think that the Liberals Carney had a good program while we were all afraid of what was happening in the United States. And I think I agree with some of the criticism that Poilievre didn't get on the bandwagon fast enough of the issues that were created right before the election. And then they painted him like a Trump. And I think that's killed him. I think that while Trump is in power, he'll never become prime minister. And then I am impressed with Carney. I've never been a Liberal. I'm from Calgary. But he's doing things that the country needs, whether it's a conservative idea or a Liberal idea. And I think that we need to run Canada like a business. I'm really impressed with the things that he's doing to help us. And although he's bowing sometimes to Trump, he is trying to make us an international superpower as far as our exports and finding new ways and to make us great like we were in the 60s. And I can't speak with the NDP.
You can't speak about the NDP. Okay, fair enough. Joanna, thank you so much. Let's stop here. We're off and running on Talkback today for Thursday. Federal politics. We're talking about Poilievre. We're talking about Carney. We're talking about the future of the NDP. Dark days for the NDP. A couple of lines available there if you want to grab one and share your thoughts. It's been a while since we've talked purely politics on Talkback. Love to hear from you. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about federal politics from all kinds of angles today here on Talkback. 1-833-668-2577. A couple of lines available there for you. The wait won't be too long. Let's go to Steve in Calgary. Hello,
Hi,
Steve.
Rob. How you doing?
I'm good,
Can you
Steve.
hear me,
Good to hear
Rob?
from you. I hear you just fine,
Yeah.
Steve. Go ahead.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, first of all, your first caller, no, Carney did not make a comeback. He's never been in politics. And the second thing is, I think she's living under a rock, because I think Poilievre's comments and his campaign promises were all about Canadians. I don't know how she got it that he wasn't for Canadians. That's just so ludicrous. In fact, his recent interview with the Drumheller Penitentiary guy just shows how he really cares about Canadians and just where we're going with our justice system and so on and so forth. But really, I mean, I really think Poilievre I'd like to see him change his body language a little bit, which would be great. I mean, because here he is, Carney as a basically a CEO, talks platitudes. I listen to CEOs as a senior engineer, and they talk with acronyms and all the rest of it, make themselves look smart. And, really, it's not really about specifics. He's just talking in platitudes about various generalizations about what they're going to do. But he really has stole these conservative campaign promises all the way down the line. So I really don't know why Carney gets such high marks when, in fact, it's a conservative. Poilievre had reiterated those conservative platform issues. And I think, he really... I have no idea why. I mean, he was up 22 points before the Carney threw out the Trump scare tactics, and so I don't know. I mean, I would love him to be prime minister, but I really want him to see his body language changed.
Okay.
And he needs to be more, I guess, authoritative a little bit. I really don't know. I really just need him to see more of a clench fist, pound the podium type of guy, and rather than just make a comment that's obviously stupid, the Liberal platform stupidity or whatever the situation in Canada, and then smile about it. You shouldn't be smiling about it. You should really have this anger looking, this is what we have to do. Come on, people. Will you please pay attention and listen,
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Thank you for your call, Steve, in Calgary today. 1-833-668-2577 as we talk about federal politics here on Talkback. Ken in Cochrane up next. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Rob. I kind of echo the concerns or the stance that the previous caller took. I think that the first caller was somewhat a little bit misinformed in her views in terms of talking about things that were not Canadian. Yeah, Poilievre talked incessantly about Canadian issues, so I don't know where she got that from. But the second caller also gives the impression that Carney is doing, a lot of good things. Well, he talks a good talk. He's said he will do more than anything that he's actually done at this point in time. He's still, enjoying a little bit of a honeymoon as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, sure. Okay.
He hasn't gotten rid of the carbon tax. He's got rid of the consumer carbon tax, but he hasn't gotten rid of the industrial carbon tax.
Not yet. No.
There was a big push from one of his cabinet ministers this morning on EVs. So they're not going to do anything with respect to this EV mandate as far as I'm concerned. There's just so many things that they say they're going to do that I'm not certain that is ever going to come to fruition. And all they're doing is continuing.
Let me ask you this, because they're playing the music here. Let me ask you this. Could you see Pierre Poilievre one day being the prime minister? Do you think that's in the cards?
Yes, because he's forced Carney to do a lot of things that Liberals historically would never, ever have done. I think that it's time to have somebody who will actually do what a Conservative says they're going to do.
All right, very interesting. Thank you. We got to wrap it up there, Ken. Right at our time. The latest breaking news is coming up next. Every line is available now. We've cleared those phone lines for you. Jump one, grab one, get on the air.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Lots of phone lines available there. It's Talkback on News Radio. I'm Rob Snow. 1-833-668-2577. Federal politics up for discussion today. We're asking many questions. Do you think Pierre Poilievre could make a comeback? Do you see him ever leading the Conservative Party to victory in an election? Could it one day be Prime Minister Poilievre? Or is that just never going to happen as long as Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party? What do you think? Mark Carney has been the Prime Minister of Canada since March. What do you think of the job that he's done as Prime Minister? 5 months or so on the job. Good job, so-so, come see, come saw, bad job. And what about the NDP? My gosh, it's tough for them right now. A lot of people are writing off the NDP. Are you one of them? Or do you see that party making a comeback? Again, 1-833-668-2577. Love to hear from first-time callers, taking a number of first-time callers today. I mean, on Poilievre, I think the main plot line right now, it's going something like this. Win the by-election this summer. That's job number one. That should be a fairly easy task. I mean, it's Battle River Crowfoot. If Damien Curra can win the riding with more than 80% of the vote, how hard can it be for Poilievre to bring it home? I mean, there could be some subplots, I suppose. How does the whole Western separation thing play in that by-election? Can a Liberal candidate ride Carney's coattails? What impact, if any, will this longest ballot initiative have on the by-election? Those are the people that have, they found the most annoying way possible to push for electoral reform. They sign up dozens of no-name candidates to run on the by-election. So it's going to be an interesting race to watch. If Poilievre wins, the question will be, by how much? Does he do as well as Damien did and get, 82% of the vote? What does it mean if he doesn't? if it means anything, or is a win a win? I mean, if he loses, I mean, that means he can't win anywhere, and he'd just have to go. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think too many people see that happening. That wouldn't be a safe place to put your money. But then you think, okay, he's won. He's an MP again, and eventually he'll be back in his natural habitat, the House of Commons. He'd be back to doing what he does best, holding the government to account, making liberal heads explode. The House of Commons is supposed to be back right now, 2 weeks after Labor Day, the 15th of September. And the big order of business is going to be the federal budget. Carney has promised a full budget in the fall. And that's going to be an important time for the Liberals. Early into this mandate, and for Carney, who's enjoying this honeymoon now, he's going to have to account for all of these big spending promises and all lost revenue. Remember, he's cutting income taxes. He gutted the consumer carbon tax. So there's billions in revenue that won't be coming into the government. And at the same time, he's made this big promise about military spending, which could really balloon the deficit. And I mean, nobody really knows what the books look like right now and how big that deficit is going to be. So if you're Pierre Poilievre and you're an MP again, you're leader of the opposition, you're back in Stornoway, I mean, you're going to have all kinds of ammunition. And you know the way Poilievre is in the House. He's not going to be shy about using it. So win the by-election and get ready to pounce when the budget comes out. That's short term. And then he has the rest of September, most of October, November, half of December to try and show Canadians once more that he could be a prime minister in waiting. And that his Conservative Party could be a government in waiting. Even though everybody's going to be waiting because there's not going to be a federal election anytime soon. And then the next big thing for him would get through this leadership review in January. Right now, in conservative circles, I mean, yeah, there's grumbling. But it's, at this point, it's just background noise from some people in conservative circles complaining about how the election turned out. And of course, who wouldn't complain? You have a 20-point lead and you lose the election. But right now, it's just people whispering things into the ears of news reporters. They're not willing to go on the record. And it's certainly not like anyone, at least for now, is brave enough to walk up to a television reporter or stand in front of a microphone and say, Pierre Poilievre has got to go. We're never going to win with this guy leading the party. There are probably some people who feel that way. But I don't get the sense that there's some kind of anti-Poilievre revolt in the works. Not right now, anyway. We'll see how things look in January. I think the Poilievre loyalists, and even Poilievre himself, see this as kind of Stephen Harper circa 2004. You think back into the run-up of the 2004 election, the conservative movement was split. You had Reform, became the Canadian Alliance, and the old PC party. Dismantle all of that. Harper and McKay swing a deal, create this version of the Conservative Party. Harper wins the leadership, and there's an election. Stephen Harper didn't win in his first try as leader of that party in 2004, but 2 years later he won. And he won again in 2006 and in 2008 and in 2011 led the Conservatives to a majority government. This seems to be what they're banking on. This is like Harper 2004. Harper didn't win his first try and they didn't toss him aside. They gave him another chance. And look, the guy was prime minister for almost 10 years. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on their part. I'd like to know what you're thinking. At 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Pierre Poilievre wants to be the comeback kid. Do you see that in the cards for him? You see him ever leading the Conservatives to victory? Do you see him ever becoming prime minister? Is that in the cards? Mark Carney is the prime minister. He's been the prime minister since March. How's he doing, in your opinion? Good, so-so, not so good? And what about the NDP? Do you see a comeback in the making for Canada's New Democrats? 1-833-668-2577 to Sam on the line in Calgary. Hello, Sam.
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
I'm good, Sam. Thanks for calling. What's your opinion here?
So yeah, well, NDP is completely off the list. I don't think they will ever have a chance of winning back. But you got to think about it, man. Somebody's running a campaign like Pierre Poilievre for 2 years, and Mark Carney comes out of nowhere within 3 months, beats up a guy that's running a campaign for 2 years. You got to first realize, where did Pierre Poilievre went wrong? He had a lot of people that was sticking up to him, including me, myself, and I had to take my vote out of him just because of the things he started saying at the end. So things like we were talking about protection, out of nowhere, Pierre Poilievre came out that, he was going to pass a law for anti-Semitism. Great, that's a good law, but give that same equal protection to Christians, to Muslims, to Hindus, to everybody else. Everybody's being attacked in the country. So unfortunately, it's not just Canada. It happens all over the world, right? There are some crazy people out there that are attacking everybody for no reason. But if you're just going to stand up and be like, hey, I'm just going to pass a law for anti-Semitism only, everybody's going to be like, okay, so what about us? That's when he started losing votes, and people started doubting him. They're like, hey, is he a bought-out guy? That's what's going on? Because look at it again, coming back to my point, a guy comes out, runs a 3-month campaign, and beats up somebody who's been running a campaign for 2 years, right? Pierre Poilievre, a lot of people were standing up for him, but at the end, he started saying things where he started losing all these votes.
Okay, so he lost you right at the end, and again, what did he do at the end that turned you off?
Well, okay, if you're going to stand up and say that we're going to pass a law for anti-Semitism,
I don't remember him saying that. I don't remember him saying that. Right? I mean, Pierre Poilievre has always been a staunch supporter of Israel. Make no mistake about that. He spoke 100%. Out against the protests that are happening. Yeah. There have been violent incidents, of course. We've had the synagogue shot at. We've had synagogue. Oh, come on. We've had synagogue shot at, right? Yeah. Synagogue shot at, school shot at, all of this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree it happens. Also, in Quebec, a person walked in and shot at people while they were praying at a mosque. In Vancouver, a person drove their car in and on the Filipino parade and killed a bunch of people. Let's pass a law on that as well. Let's be equal, right? Give equal protection to everybody. That's what I'm standing up for. But when you're just coming and specifically targeting the one group only, that, hey, we're just going to protect these guys, but there's not going to be a law for these other people, people are going to start doubting you.
So did you think he was what, like Taube? Okay, was he too pro-Israel? Too pro-Israel?
100%. Oh, yeah, because he was going to all the synagogues giving speeches there, but he wouldn't going to mosques, he wasn't going to churches, he wasn't going to temples. Why not? Why are you only choosing synagogues? Why are you only going and giving speeches there? Are they funding you? Everybody was funding this guy. He was getting funded from everywhere because everybody loved him. He was standing for right thing. He was the first one. See,
well, I mean, we have, there are campaign finance laws in the country anyway, and the donations that people can make to any election campaign are pretty limited anyway. So,
but look at this. Everything that Pierre Poilievre was going to do, like actually carbon tax, Mark Carney started saying the same thing. We all know that this was all Pierre Poilievre's plan. But Mark Carney came and said that I'm going to do the same thing as what Pierre Poilievre is going to do, and he started taking the votes. So this is the same thing that Pierre Poilievre was going to do, and everybody was standing with Pierre Poilievre. So why did Mark Carney win? I'm asking, this is something we all got to think about, right? Like, where did Pierre Poilievre went wrong? And this is what I think, and I believe that 100%. And I don't think he will ever.
I welcome your opinion.
Get people.
You don't think he'll ever become prime minister? You don't think he'll ever become prime minister?
I think that when you lose somebody's trust, it's very, very difficult to gain back. So I'm still a conservative fan. I actually want the country to be run by conservatives. See, I live in Alberta, and I'm very happy about what Daniel Smith is doing in here. And we need Conservatives, but we're going to need a different face now. I don't think Pierre
Need a
Poilievre
different
has
face.
ruined his
Fair enough.
reputation.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're not alone in that opinion. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Scott, Southern Ontario. Scott, you're on the air. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call up.
My pleasure.
Interesting. A couple of things. I'm a liberal. I'll make that known.
I know, Scott.
When I hear Conservatives call in and they're upset that our Prime Minister Carney is doing things that align with Conservative values and ideas and platform, it's just funny that they're upset about that. They should be happy about that. It doesn't matter who's doing it. So that's interesting. But in terms of Pierre Poilievre, I don't to lose. Not only did the party not win, so they're 0-4 in the last 4 federal elections. So the federal Conservative Party really has to take a look at that. Like, why cannot we win in the last 4 elections? 4 different people, and then with Pierre, it's like he lost his riding. Like, not only did the party not win, but he lost. That is, I don't know how if Trudeau, if Justin had the 3 elections he won, if Justin had lost the election and lost his seat, would he have headed the Liberal Party? I can't. In what world does that happen? I cannot see Pierre Poilievre actually making it through the January party review. I really do not believe that he will. And if Mark Carney is a very smart man. I know one of your callers said, well, he's a CEO and he uses acronyms. No, this is a really smart individual. And so there is a thought process to him allowing Pierre Poilievre to have the by-election and to come back. Like that is, trust me, Mark Carney is no fool, and he's not allowing all of this to happen and allowing Poilievre back into Parliament come the fall. He's doing that on purpose because he knows that he's the perfect foil to Mark Carney, to himself. And so I think what's going to happen, I see this is happening. Right. I think yes, Pierre's going to win the riding. Yes, he's going to get back. Yes, he's going to be in Parliament. Yes, he's going to stand up and do the things that he did. And Canadians are going to look at that, and they're going to look at Mr. Carney, our Prime Minister, and how statesman he is on the world stage, and they're going to go, this Pierre Poilievre guy is he's no Prime Minister.
Yesterday's man. Yesterday's man. Okay, fair enough, Scott. Yeah, fair enough. Not surprised to hear that. Thank you for your call. Hope to hear from you. Lines available on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And the topic is federal politics, and Rick in Cambridge is up next. Hello, Rick. You're on the air.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. Rick, what's your opinion?
My opinion is Pierre Poilievre should have won the last election, and I feel that Carney and the Liberals stole his playbook, and that's what ended up happening because they were still in power. They were seeing how well he was doing, and they just copied it, and things shifted. And I don't understand why they shifted. So, and basically right now, Carney is acting more like a conservative than a liberal. I'm kind of happy with some of the things that he's doing, but I don't understand, are things shifting or not? I'm not an expert,
Right. I guess the question is, Poilievre, you say he lost the last election and he should have won it. What about the next election? That's the question. Could you see a comeback for the Conservatives? Do you think Pierre Poilievre could ever beat Mark Carney and the Liberals in an election?
Well, the way the Canadians are reading it, and since they voted Liberal the last time after all the carnage and damage Justin Trudeau did, and people seem to forget those years very quickly because we're still suffering from the damage from that. I've been concerned, and because of the way things are going and Carney getting in, I'm worried about Pierre Poilievre because he kind of helped with getting things on track with Canada still. Because I think the Liberals thought, hey, if we're not going to follow what he's saying because everybody wants him, we're going to be in trouble. And then things shifted. So I hope that there's a chance for him, but I'm scared that there won't be because the Liberals are being smarter and wiser now about what Canadians want.
You say you like some of the things that Mark Carney has done. What do you like about the job that he's been doing so far? What do you like about it?
I'm happy that he's doing cuts, and and he seems to be more like financially forward, and he's not planning. Like before, it was always knee-jerk reactions from the Liberals, where now things more thought out and stuff like that. I'm a conservative all the way, but I think honestly he's doing a decent job right now, which I was worried because when the Liberals got in again, I'm like, oh my God, this is the end of us. But actually, he's not doing a bad job. I have to be honest.
He's been a pleasant surprise. Okay. Yeah. No, I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah. Thank you, Rick. Thank you. That's a busy hour. Let's try it again. Hour number 2 comes up of Talkback right after the latest breaking news. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. Rob Snow with you again today. Discussing federal politics today with your help at 1-833-668-2577. 4 lines there for you. The wait won't be long at all. We've been talking about Pierre Poilievre's future. Could he make a comeback? Pierre Poilievre, the comeback kid. Do you ever see him becoming prime minister, for example, leading the Conservatives to victory in an election? Or is that not in the cards? Never going to happen. What would you say? Mark Carney has been running the show since March. What do you think of the job that he's done as Prime Minister of Canada? Is he doing a good job? So-so job. Bad job. What would you say? And the NDP. These are dark days for the new Democrats. I mean, is it over for them? Is it over for the federal NDP? Do you see a comeback in the cards for the team in orange if you've been a supporter of the NDP in the past? Any number of ways to look at federal politics. There may not be a lot going on, but there's always a lot going on. Let's go to Airdrie. Gary is up next here on Talkback. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Rob. I just wanted to add a lot of what we kind of forgot during that whole election period was, remember, Danielle Smith started to go a little radical on, well, she's always been out very far to the right. But remember, right during the federal election, she started, remember the Tucker Carlson thing, the conservative fundraiser down in Florida? And that started, and if you look at polling at the time, that really started to hurt Pierre Poilievre, especially in the East, where Easterners kind of went, is he a Danielle Smith protege? And I really thought that hurt him during that period.
You think Danielle Smith hurt Pierre Poilievre?
Absolutely. She was good for him in Alberta, but for the rest of the country, I really believe that she was an anchor for him in the sense of garnering votes in Eastern Canada, because they seen right at that time. Remember, the thing with Carney is we've seen him as the anti-Trump, and we've seen Danielle Smith as kind of the pro-Trump, and that kind of drew Poilievre into that same frame, into that same picture. He may not have been, but for a lot of Eastern voters, I felt that they thought, hey, we need to go as far away from Donald Trump, whether that be left, that we could, in order to defend ourselves against him, as most I think the electorate's seen it.
Okay, I will say, the Conservatives did a lot better in Ontario than a lot of people thought they would. Let's not forget that. The Conservatives still managed to secure more than 40% of the vote, the best since the Mulroney years, for crying out loud. It's not like it was a bad election. It just wasn't good enough, right? For the Conservatives.
Agreed 100%. I think it was, let's be honest, Carney was, at the time, given the situation, was a bit of a heavyweight. They brought in a heavyweight. And I think, Pierre Poilievre could box too. If you look at polls 6 months before the election actually took place, it was going to be a landslide Conservative victory, right? He was almost a victim of circumstance.
Okay. Do you see him ever becoming prime minister? Do you think he could?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that Carney is going to be on a short leash.
On a short leash. Oh, okay. Okay. Certainly enjoying a honeymoon, but you think it might be a short one, a shorter one than maybe some people think.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I find voters can get fickle pretty quick.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Gary, for calling from Airdrie today. In Kitchener, Ontario, Scott is up next. Hi, Scott.
Robbie, how are you?
I'm good. Scotty, how are you?
Not so bad, sir.
Good. What's your opinion?
My opinion is that Poilievre will eventually be prime minister, and I think he should already be prime minister. I don't know. I have no clue why. I think the Liberal Party did an awesome job of creating the whole Donald Trump boogeyman and that portraying Poilievre that he was a real Trumper and all this stuff. Looks to me like Carney's quite the bootlicker, and not really. The elbows up thing is kind of a lot of horse shit, but.
Okay, watch the language there.
Sorry about that, but
That's okay.
Yeah, I think hopefully Canadians. I think Carney will be on a fairly short leash here, but I've kind of lost faith in Canadians. I don't understand why people even just bolting Carney back in. The last go around, how many years we just went through this stuff. We'll see if he carries through. Like a lot of his platform, a lot of his ideas are stuff that Poilievre was proposing. So, almost think they stole a bit of the playbook. I agree with the other caller.
Yeah, but aren't they plays that you should like? Like, shouldn't you like that he canceled the carbon tax? Shouldn't you like that he's talking about an oil and gas pipeline? Shouldn't you like that he's talking about, cuts to the government, getting rid of, the size of the bloated bureaucracy, cutting that down to size? Aren't all of these things that conservatives should like?
Sure, but let's see if it happens. It's the same. The Liberals are famous for saying we're going to do this. We're going to give all First Nations clean drinking water. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They don't do any. They don't do any of it a lot of times. Let's see where it goes. He had to cancel the carbon tax because Poilievre was going to do it. So I think that was a no-brainer. But that was forefront in everybody's mind during the election, right, or before the election. They really spun a good narrative with Donald Trump and the free trade stuff. I think that's kind of what got all Canadians scared. Like, I don't know. I'm disappointed with Canadians. They don't seem to.
Right. Really, they ran a fear campaign. Kind of thing. Right.
Pretty much.
Okay. All right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Canada was scared. Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you. Great analysis,
Thanks,
sir.
Rob.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. 1-833-668-2577. Hour number 2 of Talkback off and running, and lots of lines available for you to share your opinion today. Federal politics up for discussion here on this Thursday. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
A very rare opportunity for you here with every single phone line available right now, folks. It was very busy right off the top. In fact, the phone lines were jammed, but it's quieted down a bit. So look, if you want to jump in on the conversation here, we're just kicking around political stuff today. And if you've never called before, if you're a first-time caller, hey, why not take the leap today? 1-833-668-2577, put you right on the air. We've been asking Pierre Poilievre, okay? Out of sight, but never far out of mind. Could he make a comeback? Could he be the comeback kid? Do you ever see him leading his Conservative Party to victory in an election, defeating the Liberals, becoming Prime Minister of Canada? Or is that just never going to happen for that party as long as he is the leader of the party? There's a line of thinking that says that Conservatives will never enjoy the breakthrough they're looking for as long as Pierre Poilievre is the leader. They need to find a new leader. That's what some people think. I don't think that, but that's what some people think. Meantime, you have Mark Carney, toast of the town, Prime Minister since March. How's he doing, in your opinion? Is it enjoying a bit of a honeymoon right now? And what about the NDP? It's anything but a honeymoon. Like a bitter divorce between Canadians in the NDP these days, the federal NDP. Do you ever see that party making a comeback? Let's take a couple of first-time callers here. Mason in Calgary. Hello, Mason.
Hey, I just had a couple points.
Sure thing.
Like when you look at the actual facts, Pierre Poilievre, they were saying his numbers that he got for the Conservative Party were the best that party's gotten since the 80s. So they did really well.
They did, yeah.
And the fact is, the reason the Liberals won, even though they got those great numbers, was the complete and utter collapse of the NDP. So
good point.
I think next election, whenever that comes, if the NDP does make a comeback, I think that's only going to hurt the Liberals. So they're going to be challenged there. So I think the Conservatives did do well. And another point that I wanted to make too, I hear a lot of people saying, Carney's doing some good things. I do agree that I like how Carney's suggesting they're looking for cuts in the public sector. It won't be popular, but I think it needs to be done. But as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't cut the carbon tax. He reduced it to zero, so it's still there for future use.
I suppose you could look at it, but would it not now be political suicide to bring it back?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. If you've read his book and his green agenda for Canada, I think he basically reduced that to get everyone on board, and I think it will come back once he feels like he's got the support. Yes. Otherwise,
I don't see it coming back. I don't see it coming back. I think he's expended too much political capital on that. Made such a big deal out of it. Sitting in the prime minister's office and signing this, phony executive order, first order of business acts. I got rid of the carbon tax. All this stuff. It'd be hard for him to go back on that, I think. And send gas prices up another 20 cents a liter. I don't think people would be too impressed with that.
I guess the question would be then, why didn't he just get rid of it instead of reducing it to zero?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. I don't think it's coming back. I understand, what you're saying he did, and what you're saying is entirely accurate. It's not as though it has been repealed, right? It has been reduced to zero. You're right there, but I think it's staying at zero. What happens with the industrial carbon tax? That's another thing, because that whole system works on a system of credits, and what he promised to do when he was running for the Liberal leadership was reduce the number of credits that would be available on the market, which would make those credits more expensive, which would increase the price of the industrial carbon tax. Right. So, okay. Do we have Kevin on the line? Is Kevin there?
Kevin's here.
All right, Kevin, go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Rob. You had a caller a couple of calls ago talking about how he was disappointed in Canadians. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool conservative, always have been. But I'm very much the person that I want to support whoever's, leading things in the direction that I want to go. And, Poilievre was saying all the right things. He had everything on his platform that I like to hear. But people complaining that Carney took a page out of his playbook and, like this is somehow a bad thing. When the Liberals are in power in the middle of a term, Conservatives sit there and scream about, they're doing this wrong and they're doing that wrong. If the Liberals turned around at that moment and said, okay, let's do this and this and this and this that typical Conservatives would like to see, what are you going to complain about now? I'm not a Carney fan, but I can't tell you how happy I am that I don't care who he took a playbook page from. He's doing what me as a conservative wanted to see done. I'm cautious.
Right. Okay.
I'm like your last caller. 0%. He didn't take it away. So I'm afraid I'm more with your last caller than I am with you. He's keeping his options open. But I don't care if he's liberal or if he's a purple unicorn party. If he's doing what we want him to do, isn't that what's important for Canada?
Okay. All right. Do you think he's doing a good job?
For now, I think he's doing a good job.
For now. You kind of have him on probation, right? He's kind of like a new employee who's on probation, right?
Keep up the good work is what I say. And no, I don't
Okay.
think Poilievre could get elected. I just don't.
You don't think so? Okay.
No.
All right. Very interesting. Thank you, Kevin, for calling. Appreciate you taking us up on the offer there. It's Talkback. Political chat today. Share your thoughts. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about federal politics today, let's get to Jay on the line. Hi, Jay. You're on the air. Share your opinion, Jay.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Just great, Jay. Thank you. Go ahead.
On Pierre Poilievre to start,
Yep.
I don't think he will be reelected. I don't think he will ever be a prime minister. I don't think I think an earlier caller mentioned it as well. I don't think he survives his leadership review, like late this year, or early next year, I think it is.
January. It's in January.
Yeah. That being said, I like him as a leader of an opposition. I like him being there. I think he's the perfect guy to have there to keep Carney accountable to all these big promises he's made. So on Carney, the prime minister himself, I'm cautiously optimistic as an Alberta conservative. He's saying all the right things. And as an aside, if he does everything he says he's going to do, he's not a liberal. Carney's a conservative. He's the definition of a progressive conservative. So I actually think we have a sleeper inside the party.
Okay.
I actually also believe that Carney's put himself in a bit of a difficult situation with his own party that's probably going to cause him problems down the line whenever we have our next election. All these conservative promises that he's made, if he executes on them, and I'm cautiously optimistic that he will, he is going to alienate the Liberal left, and they are going to coalesce back to the NDP, I believe, and that's going to hurt the Liberal vote. So on the conservative side,
Such
that's
a great
what I
point.
believe anyway.
Yeah, that's such a great point.
I also there'll be nowhere else for the Liberal left to go. They'll have to go to the NDP, I believe, which is going to hurt the Liberals. And for the next conservative leader, I would love to see Michelle Rempel throw her hat in the ring.
Oh, okay. All right. Why is it that you're so convinced that Poilievre won't even make it past January? I'm wondering what you're thinking there, because there's no kind of outright rebellion right now. The caucus seems to be behind him.
It's
for
historical
now, anyway.
for me. I don't remember the last time a conservative leader that lost as many elections as Pierre Poilievre. Well, he's lost one. Has he lost two?
He's
or
lost
one?
one. Yeah,
I can't remember.
He's lost one. Yeah, as leader. Yeah.
Even losing one election tends to get you booted from the leadership.
Well, that's been the recent history. Certainly.
Yeah.
Like O'Toole was one and done, but that was the pandemic election. Scheer was one and done. But there were people people weren't comfortable with Scheer's social conservative values, I guess you could say. Pretty hardcore Catholic upbringing. So,
but I believe when the conservative brain trust gets together and tries to figure out why Carney was able to be so successful so quickly in this last election with only a few months of campaigning to close the gap on a 20-point lead, I think they're going to come to the conclusion that they need more of a centrist, more of a progressive conservative than a hard conservative in that leadership spot.
Okay. All right. Look, I love the analysis. I don't agree with all of it, but it's well thought out. Thank you so much for your call today. 1-833-668-2577. More of your calls after the news on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's the home stretch of the Thursday Talkback. We've been kicking around Political issues today, having a political conversation from all kinds of angles. Loving the conversation. Pierre Poilievre and his potential for a comeback, maybe even someday becoming prime minister. Do you see that ever happening? Mark Carney, what's your assessment of his job performance so far? About 5 months on the job as prime minister. And what about the NDP? Not much interest in the NDP today, I have to say. Maybe a lot of people are writing that party off. Daryl is up next on the line. Hi, Daryl.
Hi, how you doing, Rob?
I'm just great, Daryl. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Well, I think Pierre Poilievre's job is secure as leader of the Conservative Party. It'll be very interesting once we open Parliament and see how things go there. Personally, didn't really particularly care for Mark Carney, but he's our prime minister, and so far he seems to be taking a much more business-like approach to running the government. Having to tell your own PMO staff to get off their butts and get into work on time is one example. So hopefully we will see him take a really strong overview of what should be done for the economy, and let's hope that he takes a more global approach to this whole global warming environment, climate change thing, and lets Canada really help the world by producing ling and shipping it to help reduce carbon footprints of countries that really do need help. So the proof is going to be in the pudding. And to be honest with you, Rob, I hope that he does come through. That's the best we can do at this point.
Okay. It's kind of a sad indictment maybe of Mr. Trudeau's time in office, that a step up is, okay, you're working in the prime minister's office, wear business attire, right?
Yeah.
You know, wear a suit, wear a tie, whatever the case might. Show up for work on time. If the meeting is at 11 o'clock, make sure you're there at 11 o'clock and know your file. You know, if your file is energy, make sure you know your file. If your file is trade, taxes, whatever, just know your file. Apparently, this is suffer fools on that sort of thing. So, maybe
and I think
Mr. Trudeau did.
Rob, I think that is a huge step forward.
Yeah.
You know, in business, you either perform or you're out the door. And if he starts running the government like that, I think we're going to see a lot of positive change.
Okay. Time will tell. Thank you so much for your call, Daryl. Thanks for hanging in there through the news. 1-833-668-2577. I think if you're the Conservatives, I mean, you're waiting on this by-election, you're waiting on the federal budget, you're banking on a few other things, you know, to kind of get your mojo back. Let's face it. The mess that Trudeau left behind, it's going to take years to fix some of this stuff. The immigration system is a disaster. Everybody knows it's a disaster. And it's going to take years to fix that, if it's even fixable. Housing prices, well, okay, housing prices have been coming down a little, but prices are still astronomical for mere mortals to afford, especially young Canadians. That's not changing anytime soon. Come on, are you kidding me? The economy is not doing great. Unemployment is on the rise. In fact, the latest unemployment report comes out tomorrow morning. And we're already hearing it from economists. It's not going to be a very good report. We already have unemployment north of 7%. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the unemployment rate tomorrow. The forecast is for no job growth. Don't be surprised if you hear on the news tomorrow morning on the radio, the latest unemployment rate says the Canadian economy created 0 jobs, or a number so small that it's a rounding error. Groceries are still too expensive. Mortgage rates are still higher than they used to be. Crime is still a problem. People are still sleeping in parks. You don't build a pipeline overnight. You don't open a mine overnight or build a dam or any other kind of nation building project. These kinds of things take time. And the Liberals have already been in power for 10 years and counting. And unless Mark Carney can show some real progress on these many, many, many issues outside of Trump that are facing this country, he's going to learn pretty soon that honeymoons don't last forever. You know, there's an old line in politics: governments aren't defeated, governments defeat themselves. And so if you're Poilievre and the Conservatives, maybe you're hoping that the Liberals do themselves in the way most governments do themselves in. They become too arrogant. They become out of touch. And of course, they show their incompetence over time. But if you're the Conservatives, that's also a lot of hoping. And we've heard it today on the show. Pierre Poilievre still has many, many critics. And the main line of thinking that I hear from a lot of people who aren't fans of Poilievre, and we've heard it today, he just doesn't stack up to Carney. Carney is the international man, the two-time central banker, the United Nations envoy, the technocrat, the global mover and shaker. And Poilievre is the career Ottawa politician, and that's all he's ever done. And Poilievre may have great ideas, but people just like them more when they come from Mark Carney. And we've seen how this has played out. Carney defends the carbon tax for years and then canceled it, and people think he's a great guy. Poilievre wants to axe the tax. Oh, he doesn't have anything but slogans. We now have Carney saying we need to cut the size of government. People are kind of shrugging. Poilievre says the same thing, and there are howls of outrage about cuts and austerity. Carney says he's open to a pipeline, and people say it's about time. Poilievre says it, and he's a climate change denier. Like, if you're Poilievre, you must feel, I can't win for losing. If the person on the other side is Mark Carney. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Share your thoughts on Talkback on News Radio.